As we all know, great and memorable speakers have revealed themselves in every form. As history has unveiled its truth, it is perhaps the pastor or preacher, though, that has laid the foundation for any of those great and memorable speakers. Today, as we present Jonathan Edwards and his sermon, Sinners in the Hands of an Angry God, take into account the reasoning of this choice, the significance of his speech, especially in regards to the times, the concepts utilized to convey the intent of the speech, and the inspiration that he used to invoke through this particular speech. Before we continue on, let me begin really with how he began on July 8, 1741, and impress upon you a preview of his sermon with the burdening and raw truth intrinsically waiting to be heard. In due time their foot will slip. Deuteronomy 32:35. In this verse, the vengeance of God is threatened upon the wicked, unbelieving Israelites, who were God's chosen people and who lived under the means of grace, but who, despite all of God's wonderful works towards them, remained without sense, having no discernment in them. After all the cultivations of heaven, they brought forth bitter and poisonous fruit. The verse that I have chosen for my text, in due time their foot will slip, seems to imply the following things relating to the punishment and destruction to which these wicked Israelites were exposed. That the reason why they have not already fallen and don't fall now is only that God's appointed time has not yet come. For it is said that when the appointed time comes, their foot will slip. Then they shall be left to fall, as they are inclined to do because of their own weight. God will not hold them up in these slippery places any longer, but will let them go. And then, at that very instant, they will fall into ruin. As he that stands in such slippery descending ground on the edge of a pit, he cannot stand alone. When he is let go up, then he immediately falls and is lost. The observation from the words that I would now insist upon is this: there is nothing that keeps wicked men at any one moment out of hell but the mere pleasure of God. Upon hearing these words the first time, we can only imagine the implosion fell when Jonathan Edwards struck a chord violently within each of his own parishioners' hearts. I suppose that because of his ability to orate and arrange and present words in such a manner that left the deaf to desire to hear so badly, we chose him. As students of a public speaking class, Jonathan Edwards truly epitomizes the outline of that great and memorable speaker.
The First Great Awakening in America was a religious revival spanning from 1730 all the way to 1735. It affected mainly Protestants, but it did spread from the east directly to as far west as we were. Jonathan Edwards was a very influential man in that time based on his speaking and his sermons that affected on both an individual and a political level. In the individual sense, he could either convert you from being basically a very minimal Protestant, or take even the best churchgoer and make them delve inside their own souls and their own teachings and bring Jesus back out, which affected them in different ways. According to Radical Revivalism and the Great Awakening in the Connecticut Valley, at one of his sermons, 200 people afterwards got up, went to a private house, and communed there, where there were outcries of confusion and conflict and personal pain. These people didn't understand before, because they went from being a society where it was work, church, school, work in the mornings, church in the afternoon, every day, that they were living a half-life of religion. So he affected them and put them all back inside their heads. On a political level, he took power away from the Church of England because he made you question the authorities of the church. There were authorities that told you what schools to go to, where to live, and how to live your life. Because people were reading and interpreting the Bible on their own and in own matters of their own household, they were able to give greater resistance. Kind of like our first anarchists in a way. I know that sounds kind of weird coming from 17th century Protestants. According to the Enrichment Journal, everyone was at the same level of Christianity, and after hearing Jonathan Edwards' sermons, he gave them the tools they needed and the leverage to help the American Revolution.
Jonathan Edwards is a dynamic pastor whose mission was to convert and convince his congregation of sinners to always follow the word of the Lord. I'm going to talk about the three main concepts in Jonathan Edwards' speech, Sinners in the Hands of an Angry God, and what exactly made it so effective and powerful and persuasive, especially during early America. I'm going to mainly focus on three aspects of the speech. The first point I'm going to make is Jonathan Edwards uses heavy imagery in a creative way that paints a horrific picture in the minds of the listeners. His words are graphic, described to torment each being forcing them to believe that hell is a real place, full of pain and suffering. The effectiveness of this tactics penetrated the hearts and minds of each individual, and it was said that people ran out of the church crying, conveying the forcefulness of the matter. An example would be, the devil stands ready to fall upon them and seize them as his own. At what moment God shall permit him, they belong to him. He has their souls in his possession and under his dominion. The devils watch them, they are ever by them at their right hand. They stand waiting for them, like greedy, hungry lions that seek their prey and expect to have it, but for the present, kept back. Now my second main point, along with much imagery used, Jonathan Edwards strategically uses metaphors throughout his sermon. An example, a bow of God's wrath being drawn and held over the hearts of sinners. The effectiveness of this metaphor shows that God can unleash the power at any given moment, but kindness saves them later. Another example would be when Edward compares people to serpents and snakes in his speech. Typically, these are animals despised by humans, and that exemplifies how poorly God thinks of them. Now, for my last main point, Jonathan Edwards' choice of words is also another clever type of concept used. Each descriptive word is effective to what he's trying to convey. His words easily imagine in the minds of people and produces a horrific image in their heads, like this one shown. He reaches his ultimate goal, which is to scare his audience. Phrases such as torments of hell, seeds of full fire, ruin and misery of the soul, turn the soul into fiery oven or a furnace of fire and brimstone. So in conclusion, by combining these tactics, Jonathan Edwards heavily relies on pathos, or the power of emotion, to draw his listeners and therefore capturing their interest and their attention. He also allows easy comprehension by the use of metaphors throughout his speech, therefore hitting closer to home. Each individual realizes the horrific consequences if God was not present in their lives, and the purpose, which is the overall purpose of the sermon. In this way, he has scared his listeners to continue to follow and to fear the power of God.